had to play a Christmas song this morning, so that explains the little chords with exponents intro. So it's Nashville Oversaturated. That's what we're talking about this week. Before we get into all that, though, welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time, my name is Nicky V. I'm a studio musician here in Nashville, so I play guitar on people's records and do a little producing as well and a whole bunch of teaching. So the short answer is no, Nashville's not oversaturated. Are there a ton of great guitar players here and drummers and bassists and keyboardists and singers? Absolutely, but there's also a ton of work. Regarding the saturation level, say you take the amount of talent in Nashville, you take all that talent and you relocate it to a small town or just a normal sized town. Yes, that town would be oversaturated, that market would be like totally soaked. But Nashville's not like that. There's a ton of corporate work here. Everybody's coming here for weddings. Just go to Broadway, you'll see all the bachelorette parties. And most artist gigs leave out of Nashville if they're a Midwest-based band. And there's a recording industry here, so there's just so much more opportunity for different income streams as well that you wouldn't have in a small town. And yeah, there's a certain level of talent that you have to rise to if you want to compete within that market. But the work's here if you have the skills to do it. And for the people that are maybe thinking about taking the leap and moving to Nashville or trying to weigh in the options whether they should do that or stay in their hometown and kind of play locally and do the safe thing where they have their gigs already locked in, whatever their situation is, if they're trying to figure out that decision, I think about it like this. You can either be a big fish in a small pond or medium-sized pond, or you can be a medium-sized fish in an ocean. The good thing about being the medium-sized fish in the ocean is you can actually grow into it, right? You can develop, you're going to soak up all the talent around you, and it's going to raise your own playing level. And there's more room for upward mobility, obviously. You can keep expanding. There's no glass ceiling here in Nashville. It doesn't work like that. It's an industry. There's recording, there's publishing, there's A&R. There's so many things you can do here. And everybody's situations are different, right? Some people have families. It'd be really difficult to like uproot that family and move to a music city and risk it all and like have to start over with your networking at rock bottom, I get that. But if, you're young, single, and trying to figure out whether you should do it or not, and if you have the skills to do it, or if you think you have the ability to develop the skills to do it and really want to give this a shot and your heart's in it, this is kind of where you got to be. There's one phrase I hear all the time that I want to address, and that's, Nashville's a 10-year town. They're always like, oh man, it takes at least 10 years to make it in this town. That has not been my experience at all. And I know some people find success quicker than others, but I was on a bus 10 days after moving to Nashville and played on 2 tracking sessions my first month here. I know that's not usually the case. That was just because one person stuck their neck out for me that was really kind and like had faith in my ability to deliver and represent them well on their recommendation. But I feel like after about 6 months of being in town and like really grinding it out and going and shaking hands, networking as much as you can start paying your bills playing music. Enough gigs will start coming in that pay decent enough, just even around town, to where it's like, okay, I can pay my rent now. It's very doable. You don't have to dig in to have, 10 years of life savings built up or anything like that. That whole 10-year town thing, I feel like it's more of a 4 to 5 year town. And when I say 4 to 5 year town, I mean, that's where you reach the level of success because your network has grown enough that you can start, looking at doing things like possibly buying a house, paying your bills, being comfortable and living a normal-ish life, playing music, it's never be quite normal. But you can have, the normal things you would have with a normal job because your income will support it in Nashville after about 4 to 5 years. And like, I know that's not everybody's experience. Some people find it really quick and some people it takes every bit of 10 years or more. But that's the average I'm kind of seeing for the most part. Now, regarding the income, network, and time aspect of this, your network is usually directly proportional to your income. And the longer you're in town, the more people you meet, your network's going to grow. So your income is also related to time to a degree, right? That's why I say 4 to 5 years versus a 10-year. That's just where I generally see it happening. But you have to be present to win. And what made me finally pull the trigger on moving to Nashville, I was actually a music director on a cruise ship, and we were docked in Sydney, Australia. And I'm sitting on George Street in Sydney, and I'm stealing Wi-Fi from the Apple store on my laptop sitting on the sidewalk. I was watching videos of Rich Redman and Adam Schoenfeld, and I think it was Adam said, he just looked at the camera, he's real serious. He was like, you have to be present to win. He said, if you're going to be serious about this and you really want to do this, you have to be here. And it just kind of hit me right there. I'm like, we have to do this. And I was sitting there with my friend Martin Motnick, and I shut my computer and I said, Martin, we got to go to Nashville. And that was it. And now we're both here and we play on records. Played on a song with Martin, 2 days ago. It worked. I'm here, it worked. And I know that's not the case for everybody. And I'm not, don't move here and blame me if it doesn't happen, right? Everybody has different skills and different levels of capability. But I'm just trying to share my experience with you, what made me make the decision to move here. And I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit and kind of show you guys, what it's like if you're a bass player versus a drummer, keyboard, or guitarist, or a singer, or something like that. So let me get my phone. So the saturation level and your ability to find work is also a little bit like instrument dependent. So I actually went through my phone, my contact list, and just typed in, let's do this. I'll do it right now. Drums. And if I scroll down through here, right, all these names, that's all the drums. If I go to guitar, scroll through all those, right? Those are all the names. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I actually tallied them up. And I have 43 drummers in my phone, 38 bassists, 35 guitar players, and 7 keyboardists, okay? So the lower the number, the better if that's your instrument, okay? But each instrument is different depending on how they get called and why they get called as well. So guitar is like very specialized, it seems like. There's certain guys that can just tear up the country thing or tear up the rock thing. And then there's just a handful of guys that I can call for anything. There's literally maybe like 3 or 4 guitar players on my phone out of these 35 that I can call just for any gig that I know can handle it and be a good hang and all the good stuff we talked about before. Bassists, there's 38 on my phone, and there's always seems like there's a shortage of bassists in town, right? So everybody's always scrambling to find a bassist. Drummers are interesting because for drums, I feel like there's a ton of really good drummers. There's a lot of them. They're all super good. And then there's, 4 or 5 that are just absolute monsters at what they do and can run Ableton, lock in dead on with the click, dictate endings, kind of conduct the band from the drum kit. There's just a handful of guys that are amazing at that, but there's a lot that are really good at it. And for keys, if you're a keys player and think I'm moving to Nashville, we need you. I can promise you that. I got a text, I think it was last week for a gig that was, say, somebody was looking for a keyboard player to go play in Hawaii for 2 weeks. And I have 7 in my phone. I sent 4 because I thought I knew they'd be a good fit for the gig. Then I had 2 that I highly recommended. And that brings me to another little tip right there. Anytime that the phone rings, answer it immediately when you first get here. And you have to answer it quick. And the reason I say that is what happens is whenever somebody asks me for a recommendation and I shoot them like 3 or 4 names, I'll also say, hey, call them in this order because I know the player better than they know them, and I'll kind of try to fit the right player for the right gig the best I can. What people do a lot of the time is they send just like a mass text out. They'll text all through, hey, you available this date or this date, whatever it is, whatever they need. And, whoever replies first tends to get the gig. So that's a good little tip. When you first get here, reply immediately if you can. If also, on that note, if you're the person that's sending out the text or asking for the recommendation, don't be that person. Send it to like one person, wait for them to respond, give them, a few hours or something, at least not 5 minutes or a day even, if you have time for it. It's not an emergency thing. And then go to the second person and then the third. People send those orders for a reason. It's not just, hey, here's every guitar player in my phone. I'm not going to send 35 contacts for a guitar player. I'm going to send 4 or 5 people that match that gig well. So that's just like a little side note on that. And of those instruments I mentioned, I also wrote down how many of them were like studio musicians or had the skill set that I could recommend for a session. And for drums, I have 5 guys on my phone that are studio drummers. Some I have more that kind of do both a little bit, but like 5 guys are just like straight up, they play in the studio. That's what they do. Bass, I have 3. And guitar, I have 3. And the only guitar player that I can call just for anything, even on the session side of something, like the most versatile guitar player in Nashville I know in the studio scene is probably Dave Cleveland. And he's going to treat the client amazing and be the most wonderful person in the room every time. For keys, I only have 2 keyboard players that I recommend for everything. Well, actually 3. One of them's just always busy. That's Jason Webb. I recommend him, but he's usually booked on everything because he's one of the top cats in town. But the studio world and the live world used to be, before my time, before I got to Nashville, from what I hear, were like very separate, right? You had guys that just did studio work, and then you had guys that just did live work. And there was no cross-pollination really, or very little, if any. And now that's apparently changed because a lot of myself included, a lot of my colleagues do both. And it's not like they kind of dabble in one or the other. Like, no, they're pretty split. Like, they go and they do a road gig out with, Luke Bryan or somebody for, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then they're doing sessions Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And one of the first guys I think that kind of started doing that, at least that I know of, is Rich Redmond, because his YouTube channel, it's great to keep up with. And, he was playing on Jason's record, which was cool. That didn't really happen. Usually the artist had a studio band and then they had a live touring band. And they kind of brought in that rock thing to country, and it was kind of a cool thing that happened in the 2000s. So it is a little bit instrument dependent, but if you're a drummer, don't let that scare you away. If you're a guitar player and you're versatile, that's great. If you're a keyboard player, you're golden. If you're a bass player, there's a lot of you guys here, but for some reason we always need you. But we definitely need you. Now, once you get here, there's 3 Facebook pages I would recommend following. One is called Nashville Gig Finder. The other one is called Not So Lame Nashville Gig Finder. There must have been I think there was some drama there. I'm not sure what the deal was, but both pages have a bunch of work on them. And there's another one people don't talk about that much called YEP, which is YEP, which is Young Entertainment Professionals. The thing with Yep is there's a lot of cool out-of-the-box creative thinking people on there. And so I found work that's not just like the, hey, I need a bass player on Broadway in 10 minutes kind of work on there. And guitar lessons as well, people looking for teachers. And it's everything because it's photographers, musicians, artists. So if you want to put like an album project together or something, you find musicians on there, people to do your album artwork. There's all kinds of talent in town, and they're young and they're fun and they're inspired, right? They're fresh out of school and they're hungry and want to work. So those 3 pages right there, which is Nashville Gig Finder, Not So Lame Nashville Gig Finder, and Yep. Check those ones out when you get to town. And they'll kind of give you a sense of what instruments are in demand, right? You'll kind of look through there and be like, okay, I need a bass player in 10 minutes. I've seen 3 of those posts in the last day. Okay, well, it's good if you play bass then. I need a drummer at Tin Roof, whatever it is. And then it'll also give you a sense of, who's in the community, who you need to be reaching out to, who's the band leaders, that kind of stuff. So self-awareness is hard. I know I'm painful. I know I talk too fast for doing YouTube, and I don't know why people listen to me, but at least I'm aware of it. I'm trying to work on it. So if things aren't working out for you when you first get to town, that's okay. It's going to take time. But say you've been here for a while and you feel like you play well, there might be something else going on, right? Be able to step back and look, okay, how am I treating people? How are the relationships I'm establishing going? Am I maintaining those relationships? Do I seem like I'm always out for something or in it for myself, right? You got to have the ability to step back and take a look at yourself and figure out what you're doing wrong that's keeping you from getting work or kind of expanding your career, growing your network. And they don't constantly expand. I want to talk about that too, because, it feels like sometimes you feel more momentum happening and you'll feel your career start to ramp up, and then it'll kind of plateau for a while, and then it might even dip. And you got to stay positive through that. And people are attracted to positivity. Obviously, you just got to stay happy, put things out there, right? And hope that it comes back around. Because if you act like a victim and like Nashville's out to get you, nobody's going to hire you. Victimhood is the biggest barrier to success. I said it before on the channel. And the minute you think you're a victim or act like a victim, you're done. You're not going to work. And that kind of bitter negativity thing just doesn't really resonate well when you're trying to build a career. So stay positive. Try to be self-aware. I know that's hard. I'm struggling with it too. And we're working on this stuff every day. I just launched a new website called NashvilleTracking.com. So if you're wanting to work on your guitar playing, you can go there and book your lesson straight through the website, click on a time slot that works for you, and it goes straight to my calendar. One thing I wasn't expecting is people started booking consultations on there to where they didn't want to learn guitar. They just wanted to ask me questions about Nashville. And I don't feel like I'm enough of an authority figure or in the know to answer all those questions properly, but I do my best at it. And if I don't know the answer, I'll ask somebody that does, because I probably know somebody in the industry that does know the answer to whatever questions they have. The website also has full-scale production services on it as well. So I got a bunch of my friends on here that are A-listers in town, and we can do complete remote production work. So if you're in Australia or the UK or somewhere and want to hire Nashville studio musicians, you just go on there, send us your song with the description of what you want. I'll communicate back and forth, and we do the whole production remotely for you. Or if you just want to hire me to play guitar on it, there's another little tab at the top. You just click, guitar recording. I can play acoustic or electric on your track if you're trying to build out a production remotely as well. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. The comment section is always colorful here on the channel. So if there's something I missed or if there's some advice you think you'd like to share with people, please put that down in the comments. Or if you hate some aspect of what I'm talking about, throw that down there too. It's all fun. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you.